Hello, what is going on, guys? Hockey Guy 1 here. Welcome to my review of Knives Out. So Knives Out is directed by Rian Johnson and stars Daniel Craig, Chris Evans, Ana de Armas, Christopher Plummer, Jamie Lee Curtis, Michael Shannon, Toni Collette, and Catherine Langford. The story is about Marlon Thrombey, who is found dead in his bed in the morning inside of his house, and this detective, Benoit Blanc, goes around asking all of his family members a bunch of questions, as well as Arthur Cabrera, to try to find out who exactly is behind the murder of him. The story is very good. I mean, it's a mystery, so there's a bunch of elements to it, like this whole investigation, trying to find out what's going on, and it's obviously the whole point of it. And there is a lot of clues to tell you what's going on, which they do leave a lot of clues to help you figure out who it is. And I do like how they do that. I mean, and it's very good how they use a bunch of clues to try to guide you through it, and even some red herrings to try to trick you, kinda. And they do a pretty good job with that for the most part, and it is pretty good how they do that to kind of keep you invested in the story and trying to help you find out what happened. Structure is very good. I mean, you got the first act, which is pretty much like how they're trying to find out by trying to ask a bunch of the family members what's going on, and the second act kind of, they bring it a bit further by showing you a bunch of clues, by showing you like a bunch of flashbacks to the night before, and kind of, well, they ask Martha a bunch of questions, kind of, and they do kind of bring you a lot, like, it does show a lot of scenes with the family and Ransom, and then it's kind of like moving along the story to trying to put you up clues to kind of bring you up to the climax, and then there's the third act, which is pretty much where they find out who's behind it, and they arrest who's behind it. And then, of course, the ending, which is pretty much that. And I really like how this structure is done. I mean, it's pretty much like how a mystery movie should be structured. I mean, you know, it's just, there's pretty much no other way you could really structure a mystery movie. And this movie does do a very good job with structuring it. The pacing is very good. I mean, the movie is a little over 2 hours long, and I think they did a pretty good job making it feel like it's not ridiculously long, as they did kind of put it, so it's not really long at all. You know, it didn't really feel like it was that long to me. I mean, it really felt like each scene connected with each other. Nothing really bored me that much, so they did a pretty good job with pacing here, and it did feel like it should be this long, as there isn't really that much filler in this, and each scene really does feel connected with each other. Marta Cabrera is pretty much a pretty good protagonist. I mean, she's kind of a part of the investigation, and they can kind of make you think he's the killer at times. I mean, sometimes you could be fooled by it. At times, you definitely are kind of fooled by it, because there are scenes where it kind of shows you, well, they kind of try to make it seem like she was going to be the one getting accused by the end. I mean, it definitely seemed like they were going to do that, but they didn't by the end, which is kind of what I like about that. And what I really like about her character, though, is just that how she's just this loving character who just is a good nurse to him. And I mean, she just ended up being the right ones, which ended up, it's just that they thought they were the wrong ones, who ended up committing suicide. And it's just that she's a very loving character, which is what I really like about her. And there's also a big character trait where she doesn't really want to lie, and when she does, she just throws up. I mean, it's a pretty creative character trait to have someone in a mystery film, and I really like how they kind of do that. Ransom is a pretty good character. I mean, pretty much his character is that he hates his family, and yeah, that's kind of why they leave a lot of clues towards him, and let's just say, and he just really hates his family, and that's pretty much the whole point of his character. and he just wants everything bad to happen to them because he is against his family, which is kind of makes him a pretty evil character, which is what makes him pretty menacing for this movie. Then there's the Detective Blanc, who just really cares about his job. I mean, he tries to get through this investigation and find out what's happening, and kind of doesn't want to just say it's because of suicide, and is trying his best to go through with as much evidence as he can to try to find out who's behind it, which is what makes him a really good detective in this movie. I mean, and he's just very good as a detective kind of character and trying to find out what's going on with this case and trying to find out who's behind the murder, which is what makes him just a very good character. And just sometimes even he can crack a joke at times, which is kind of the point of this movie. Is sometimes this movie is also a comedy, so sometimes he does crack a joke that works for the most part, which is what I really like about his character. The acting is just phenomenal. I mean, Daniel Craig is just fantastic in this role as the Detective Blanc. I mean, he really feels like the character because every time he acts, it's pretty much like the character. Like, even if he does overact in some scenes, it's pretty much just in scenes when he's trying to crack a joke, so it makes sense for this movie to be doing that, and they do a very good job with his acting. I mean, Daniel Craig does really care for this role, you can tell, and you can tell how much fun he's having it in it, and how much he's trying to do in this role, as he does do a very good job with his acting. And Chris Evans as Ransom, wow, he just did very good. I mean, as always, he just really tries in his role and feels like the character. I mean, just whenever he shows emotion, it's like the character's emotion, and it makes sense. And Chris Evans just really did a great job in this role, like he usually does in his roles, and he does really feel like the character, as each time when he tries to say a line, it actually feels like he wants to be there, and he's really trying in the role. And the rest of the acting is pretty much good as well. I mean, Ana de Armas, Jamie Lee Curtis, Christopher Plummer, Michael Shannon, just to name a few. I mean, they all felt like their perspective characters and did really feel like they were trying in their roles and really trying their best to do in their roles. And I really like how they do their roles, and they all feel like their characters. And like I said, I mean, this is an all-star cast, so I was pretty much expecting them to be good acting, and exactly what happened in this movie. And this acting is very good. The movie is a mystery comedy, so there is humor, like a lot of humor in it, and I do feel like it usually hits, and it's usually pretty funny when they use it. Like, most of the time, they will crack a joke. Okay, it works for the most part. I mean, usually it's like the kid and the detective and are kind of saying the jokes, and they work when they come there, and it really is funny when it happen for the most part, as the humor does really hit. Cinematography is great. I mean, you pretty much have mostly close-ups, as most of this movie is pretty much trying to show the character's emotions as they say it. So I feel like it makes sense to do close-ups for the most part of this movie, as the whole point of a close-up is to show a character's emotions, and pretty much a lot of this movie is showing characters' emotions, so using a close-up in most scenes makes sense. But even the very times when they used a whiteout, it made sense. I mean, and it showed just the landscape of the scene, and it just really worked for it. And even just the whole kind of cinematography of this movie really works. I mean, just when they kind of use camera angles and conversations, it's usually close-ups, and they use a whiteout, it works, as they do use. I do feel like they use the right angles for each scene, and each shot is the right angle, so I feel like it really works. Usually I don't mention this, but the editing is very good. I mean, usually I don't mention it, like I said, but this editing is just so good. I don't know how I can't mention it. I mean, each shot in a scene they all don't really feel choppy or anything. I mean, they all feel together, and it kind of feels like they just slide on to the next one, as that's pretty much is what happened. I mean, it feels natural. It feels like a normal movement. It's not really a horrible thing. I do feel like they do a good job with the editing here. Lighting is pretty good. I mean, they do use enough so you can see it in scenes at night, and usually this movie does use some pretty bright lighting when they kind of use comedy, and sometimes when they're kind of talking about serious and kind of taking it more serious, it's not used as much lighting in the scene, which is pretty good. I mean, I like how they do that. It makes tonal sense to do that, and it makes sense for the movie to do that. Set designs are very good. Like, the looks of the Thrombey's mansion does look very good, as it pretty much looks like a normal mansion, which is fine. And even the whole design of a whole mansion makes sense for this movie, because, I mean, you'd expect something dark to happen in a place like a mansion. It pretty much happens, and I like how they do that. It makes sense. And just the whole design of, like, each room, and it's just really looks good, and, like, the place where they have all the knives and it works. And it looks very good. I like how each room looks in the mansion. They do a good job designing that, and even, like, that one place that Ransom to bringing to, it really works. It is pretty much a thing, a small area where murder happens, so it makes sense for it to be there, and I really like kind of how it looks. That said, I do have one small negative with this movie. I mean, sometimes they did try a little too hard to foreshadow the reveal. I mean, they did a good job kind of throwing in a lot of clues, like I said earlier, but they didn't really do enough to, like, lead you away from it, so it kind of made it more predictable than it honestly should have, and it just isn't really the best thing to do. But other than that, I don't really have any. Overall, Knives Out is a fantastic mystery movie, and is one of the best movies of the year. So I'm gonna give Knives Out a 9.5 out of 10. That was my review of Knives Out. What are your thoughts on Knives Out? Tell me in the comments below. I'd like to thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye.